r/NoSleep. Posted by u/Gray, Building 679. I'm a doctor practicing rural medicine. I have some strange patients. Part 2. Jenny and the girls were flabbergasted when they saw me come in that night. I gave them an abbreviated version of my day. I went to a town and got attacked as I was leaving. It must have been a bear, said Jenny, looking at the cut on my leg. Good thing you can patch yourself up, huh? It wasn't a bear, I said, not revealing anything else. I didn't even know there was a town up there, said Carrie. Don't you dare go up there, girls, I said, patting the wound down with hydroxide, wincing at the sharp pain. If I find out you're even thinking about it, I'll ground you till you're 18. Later that night in bed I was more candid with Jenny. I told her about the blue woman and the two mysterious figures in masks. She nodded her head, listening intently. There's a lot of strange shit out here, Ben. I mean, I figured you would run into some of it eventually. It's not all quaint cute towns, there's bad stuff here, just like the city. Yeah, but this was different, it wasn't natural. Maybe you just got a little freaked out, and imagined some things, is that possible? She said with a half smile. I acquiesced, letting the strangeness of the incident slip from my mind. I remained fascinated with Junium, lingering on the blue woman. What a treasure it would be to study, a potential goldmine of medical anomalies, waiting to be discovered, even published. Doctors had become famous for far less. I became preoccupied and busy enough that I failed to notice that my appointments with Kara and the Lobos family had come to a halt. Instead, my Tuesday afternoons were scheduled for the Fergusons down on Maple Lane, their teenage daughter Beth examined weekly. If I had been more astute, and less distracted, I would have maybe noticed something was amiss. It was about 2 months later when I got a similar call from Mabel regarding Junium. I had an appointment, this time on the second pathway, last house in the row. I felt the excitement bubble in my chest, as I took my bike towards the end of the road in town. I was surprised to see Beth there. Dr. Lewis. May I walk with you? I scrunched up my face, confused. This all seemed so similar to what had happened with Kara. Sure, Beth. Why are you going up to Junium? Beth hesitated, crossing her hands. We have some relations there I am going to visit. Okay, I said, not convinced entirely of her explanation. As we climbed, I asked Beth questions. Who was she visiting? Had she been there before? Where was she going? I was making her uncomfortable. I could see her eyes darting around as she nodded or shook her head. What was she trying to hide? Junium was once again deserted, a ghost town, and we made our way to the cross-section. Beth went down the second path as me. Last house in the row, Beth said, as we walked. What a coincidence you're going to the same place as me. I was beginning to realize that this was no mistake, and starting to feel apprehensive. Tension was building in my stomach. On the second trail there were no houses. Instead, huts, made of sticks and mud, primitive structures, like something out of National Geographic, line the road. What the hell is this? I said, turning to Beth. She said nothing, walking to my side, slightly behind me. We came to the last building, rudimentary in its construction. It looked like a strong gust of wind could blow it over. In the crevasse between the lumber was a lumpy collection of hair, earth, and God knows what else. I rapped my knuckles on the outside, taking a step back, and steadying myself for what was to emerge. Someone or something stepped out. Unlike the blue woman, this thing resembled something more like an animal than a man. It was bent over, hunched, its face mutated and deformed. A jagged tooth, fang-shaped, came out of the mouth, underneath the fleshy pig-like nose. It maneuvered over, its body covered in a dense fur and wrinkled skin. I stood upright. Hello, my name is Dr. Lewis. Trying to keep my composure. The creature didn't look at me, instead going to Beth, and taking her by the arm. She let out a small yelp, as it did. Hold on a second, I said, stepping between them. You can't just grab her like that. It scowled, and in a groggle, letting out a single word. Mine. The eyes narrowed, beady like that of an owl. It opened its mouth, baring its teeth, jagged and awful. Come on, Beth, I said, we're getting out of here. I took her by the hand but she held still. I'm okay, Dr. Lewis, thank you for accompanying me. Astounded, my mouth fell open, as Beth and the beast went inside the hut, leaving me once again shut out. I felt an ominous chill run down my spine as I left Junium. Something far more sinister was at play, and I was unwittingly part of it. Later that day I found myself in front of Duke's house, the man who Bill had introduced me to. If the town had a mayor, it would be him. If anybody had answers, it would be him. "Dr. Lewis," Duke said when he saw me outside his home, "fancy seeing you here." He gave me a look over. "Come on in." His abode was small but well furnished, luxurious in its contents. I recognized a vintage Tiffany lamp, and several other antiques that must have been worth a small fortune. Duke offered me something to drink, which I shook my head to. He helped himself to a whiskey, sitting down across from me. From what I heard, it took Dr. Holliday several years before he even began to ask any questions. "You seem a bit sharper. Suppose you wouldn't be here if you weren't." "I need to know what the hell is going on in Junium," I said. "What are they, those things, those people?" Duke looked off into the distance, as if I wasn't there. "I think maybe at one point they would have maybe been worshipped like gods. Nature's forgotten children, monsters, whatever you call it. They've been here longer than we have, that's for sure." "So they're not human?" I said, my eyes widening. "Never said that. I certainly don't know what they are." He swished his glass, the ice cubes clanking against each other. "When folks settled in Cupidatas, and this was a while ago mind you, there was something here already. At first they all tried living side by side, but that didn't work. A solution was made, that the things here before, retreated up the hill to what we called Junium." Duke cleared his mucus-lined throat, hacking up something, before swallowing it down. "Things were pretty harsh for the town of Cupidatas the year they left. Bad things started to happen. Kids would go missing, women would be found chewed up on the side of the road. Crops failed, people were hungry, hanging on by just a thread. It was finally Dr. Ambrose that brokered a solution. You notice that folks around here seem to be doing well? Strange of a small town, right?" I nodded. Of course I had noticed. "That's the deal. In exchange for peace and prosperity, we send over 3 girls over the hill every year. Sometimes we get lucky, send over a motorist that gets turned around off the highway, anything helps, but always the 3 girls." "Jesus Christ," I said, my stomach began to churn. Doctors have always been the ferryman. First Tom Rabos, then Holiday, and now you. For that we are indebted to you, Dr. Lewis. This is madness. I felt my voice quaking. Why don't their families say anything? Why don't they stop this? Duke rolled his eyes. The Lobos, Fergusons, and Giver families are paid to breed, they get compensated very well by the town. Sometimes, the girls they produce will be unfit and will have to look at other options. I didn't want to ask, but I had to. I was an accomplice in all of this now. What happens to them, the girls? Duke leaned in. That's one thing I care not to think about. He stood up, going over and refilling his whiskey. And I only mention this, on account that Dr. Holliday once told me he couldn't fulfill his duties. We've got at least 3 witnesses who are willing to testify that the last time they saw Beth and Kara alive was with you walking up the hill. Just in case you ever think about leaving. I left Duke's house and promptly threw up on the side of the road. I went home, unable to look at Jenny, Carrie, or Connie without feeling sick to my stomach. It was my fault for dragging them into this mess. On Tuesday, Mabel informed me that I now had a standing weekly appointment at the Giver's home. Their daughter was named Sally. Every time I went over to examine Sally, I felt awful and despicable afterwards. I took to drinking, dreading the inevitable trip to Junium. The phone call from Mabel came 3 months later. Third pathway, nothing else. I went to the end of the street in town, where Sally was waiting for me. I couldn't even look at her as we went upwards. When we got to the intersection of the paths, we took the last one. The trail came to an abrupt end, and looking ahead, I could see that there was a large cave, made of sand and rock, a wide cavernous opening in front. Outside of its entrance was a blue pickup, and even at a distance I could see the seats were soaked in blood, and other human remains. I felt my stomach churn. There were shrieks coming from inside the cave, horrible and ghastly, that became louder the closer we came. Squinting my eyes, I could see something, hiding in the shadows, behind a large rock. It was one of the figures that I had seen on the road my first trip to Junium, though now I could tell that it wasn't a mask it was wearing. The skin around its head was black, pulled taut, like leather. It had no eyes, just indents where they should have been, and a mouth like a cut running vertically. "You're not doing this," I said to Sally, grabbing her. "I can't do this." Sally looked at me nervously, the screams from the cave amplified in their intensity. "It's my duty, Dr. Lewis." "Come on," I said, steering her away, and there were awful sounds behind us, as we left, filling my ears, and shaking my heart. Sally didn't hesitate to follow me. I did the best I could, driving her into the city, giving her $5,000 in cash and my credit card, as well as a bus ticket to Chicago. "Thanks Dr. Lewis," she said, hugging me before she boarded. "When you get to Chicago, go to a police station or hospital and ask to speak to a social worker. Tell them you need help escaping a bad home environment. Don't tell them where you're from or they might drag you back here. They should be able to help you." Driving back to Cupid as I felt at peace with my decision. Let that old fuck Duke do his worst, charge me, throw me in jail. I wouldn't be a part of this anymore. I would start looking into ways to get Jenny and the girls out as soon as possible. Duke showed up to my door 2 days later, a smile on his face. "You got a minute, Doc?" "Sure," I said. Uneasily, I led him inside to our kitchen. He took a seat at the table. "Where the family at, Doc?" Duke pushed his hands together. "They went to the grocery store, picking up some stuff for dinner tonight." "How can I help you, Duke?" Unrolling a paper in front of him, I looked down at a circled article. 13-year-old girl found mutilated on the outskirts of Chicago. I didn't need to read the rest. "I tried to save her, I tried to save Sally," I said, sitting down. Nodding his head, Duke sighed. "I know you did, bud. We still got to send a girl over the hill though. Luckily we have 2 options." He gave me a knowing look. It dawned on me what he was implying. "Go to hell, Duke. I'll have nothing more to do with this. We're out of here, gone. You can go to the cops and try and charge me with all those girls' deaths, I don't care anymore. But I'm out." "You know what happens if you don't do your duties? If a girl doesn't go over the hill?" I said nothing, and Duke came over, whispering into my ear. His breath smelled like tuna fish and onions. What he told me left me stilled, motionless and glued to the chair. "No," I said, shaking. "No." "Yup," Duke said, standing up and going to the door. "And I know you've been told this, but next time you go up to Juminka, make sure you're not there past dark. Those things like to hunt at night. They've got your smell now and you done pissed them off." Her hand felt clammy and warm, sweaty as we began the incline upwards. It was a cloudless day, a perfect day for a hike. We took the third road. 2 options, yet I had made the decision. "Oh, cool, look at that cave," said Carrie's naive eyes looking at me. "I think I hear something inside of it." "Me too," I said, trying to conceal my terror. "Let's go check it out."